لسه صعيدي بيذاكر فوق الدولاب عشان ياخد دراسات عليا. Quick translation would be, you know, there's always in every country there's people make fun of. So they're called Saida in Egypt. So we ask, why do Saida study on top of the closet to get higher education? I can't believe I'm doing. All right.
Hi, my name is Jahara and welcome to a new season of In the Line of Wire. And to start off the season, we have a very special guest who's here from Egypt, Dr. Ahmed Sidki.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you in the studio.
Thank you.
And the joke was very funny. I'm sure Rabia is going to run it. So.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Now, to start off with, I think for the sake of people watching this, would you give us a little snapshot of your background?
Okay, my background, I was one of the people that started their IT life very young. I started professionally coding at the age of 14. And after many years of software development, I got my bachelor's in computer science. I was valedictorian. And I worked in some of the major IT companies in Egypt. And after a couple of years, I decided I need more. And I want to try to solve some of the problems that I saw in the practical software development world. So I decided to do my master's in requirements engineering. Requirements engineering is how to manage requirements, how to elicit them, verify them, all that kind of.
So similar to expectation management?
No, it's one certain field within software engineering that focuses specifically on the requirements engineering phase. And I did my master's at Virginia Tech, and with my advisor we had laid out a roadmap even to continue my PhD there. And I remember after finishing my master's, I went to my advisor and said, I love this, it's great, but I can't continue. And he said, why? I said, because something's wrong. This doesn't match what happens in the real world. It's too theoretical. And he said, so what do you want to do? I said, I don't know, but I want to try to invent or find a process that actually works. He smiles at me and laughs and says, good luck. No. So it was interesting. This was around the time where the Agile, paradigm had started. And I got to meet some of the key thought leaders in the Agile community. I learned a lot from them. And my, vision was by the time I finished my PhD, people would understand what Agile is, but the next question would be how to adopt it. So I did my PhD in Agile adoption, how to help organizations adopt Agile, whether they are clean room software engineering or on the chaotic side.
Okay, so tell us briefly, what is Agile development?
What is Agile development? So Agile,
why is it important?
Excellent question. So first of all, Agile is a mindset. I don't call it a process. It's a way of thinking that are defined by a set of values, guided by 12 principles, and manifested or implemented through a large number of different practices. It's a way of thinking about software that we know, but we haven't applied. All right, everyone knows it, but the fact, why isn't it not common sense? That's the big mystery. So the basic idea is things are changing around us very quickly. The definition of Agile means lightweight, nimble, flexible. So things are changing around us very, very quickly. Whether technology, requirements, our customer needs, people within the organization, everything is constantly changing, much more than 10 years ago. So therefore, in order to, adapt all this change, you need a process that is as flexible as the dynamics of the environment around you.
Okay, now you're not in favor of CMMI.
No, I am.
You are, okay.
So again,
because,
that's a great question.
The other day when we were having this discussion, you said everybody's out to do CMMI.
Yes.
And don't they realize that the time for that is gone?
Excellent point. So let me make sure I clear this. Okay. CMMI is a framework. The way the framework has been understood by 95% of the people applying it,
they think it's a process.
They think not just a process, but a rigid process. That you have to do it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These are the set of best practices, and you have to do it like this. I do not like the term best practices. I'll tell you why. Because what was best 5 years ago isn't best today. What's best in your organization today may not be best for me. Language makes a big difference. When I call something a best practice, psychologically I automatically think I'll take it as is. But that might not apply to your organization. When you look at the history of CMMI and where it started for government contracting, especially in the defense area. These organizations have a certain culture, they have a certain need. The whole ecosystem there is very, very different than the organizations we work in today. So to try and copy and paste these best practices, I've heard people ask other companies that have implemented CMI, can you send me your process document? And I'll take it as is. So CMMI itself, I have no problem with. It's the implementation that we see of CMMI just for the sake of certification. That I have a problem with.
Okay. Now, is there some way that Agile combines with CMMI?
Definitely.
It does.
So 2 weeks ago, we had the first conference, as far as I know, in the world dedicated to the issue of Agile CMMI. And this was in Cairo, Egypt. And I had invited a close friend of mine, Hilal Glazer. He's a visiting scientist at the Software Engineering Institute. And he was the lead author of the paper that talks about Agile and CMMI, published by SEI. And we gave a one-day seminar about how to marry these two, I call them cultures. These are two different cultures. You'll see a small organization when it starts in a small apartment. They are Agile by nature. They don't even know it. All right? Everyone is doing everything. There's this.
And very beautifully.
Beautiful. For some odd reason, as they scale, they say, okay, let's look at the best practices. Now, where are these best practices coming from? They're coming from very different cultures. Either construction, the PIM book is based on the construction industry, or it's coming from defense contracting, which is very different in nature. So they take these best practices, they separate people, they forget to do what they used to do that worked.
Which was teamwork.
Which was collaboration, which was moving things quickly, which was not adding bottlenecks. So the fear of control is what causes this.
Okay. All right, makes sense. Now tell me, why should a company want to implement Agile?
Let me put it
What are
this
the
way.
advantages?
Excellent question. Let me put it this way. I always tell people, if what you're doing works, why change it? If you have pains, which most organizations do, I will say, let's try something new. But what? There are many different things to try out there. What Agile is, it's not a process. It won't tell you do this, then this, then this, then this. Neither, by the way, is CMMI. Both of them don't have workflows in it. But what Agile does, and this is my guarantee to you, if properly educated on Agile, people's mindsets will change. They will be open to change. They will be very sensitive to waste, which is key. Our organizations are suffering from the amount of waste that is introduced in it. To get from concept to cash, as Mary Poppendix says, as quick as possible. This is what Agile will add. Statistics show. And this is one case study we published. 25% reduction in time to market. Imagine your customer satisfaction. Imagine the market opportunities and competitive advantage you'll get. That's number one. Number two, a huge increase in customer satisfaction. Because now the customer is seeing value early. He's not seeing waste. All right? You are engaging them in the process as you go. Why wouldn't they be happy?
Right. But is this true of everyone who implements Agile? I mean, is there really that much customer satisfaction in each case where it's applied?
Correctly? Yeah. Yes. This has been my experience. So, but let me put it this way. Just like CMMI has been implemented poorly, Agile has been implemented poorly in many different places.
But is that because there's no clear understanding of it in certain cases?
That's definitely one. Number two, it seems simple.
Okay.
You read a book about Scrum, put some people in a room, do some iterations, have a daily stand-up meeting. Let's do it. Why not?
Okay.
All right? And once they do it, there's much more to it than this. There's the mindset, there's the education, there's the fundamental organizational agility, and this isn't put in place.
Okay.
So success doesn't show up quickly, and they say this agile thing doesn't work. Actually, it cost us more headache.
Right.
Because first, everyone used to do their work by themselves. Now we have everyone doing everything. It doesn't add any value.
Okay, so what you're really suggesting is that Agile does away with putting people in silos.
I read a recent book called Chasing the Rabbit by Steven Spear, if I'm not mistaken. And in his book, he did a study to look at high-performing, hyper-velocity organizations, those leading the rest of the organizations. The book is called Chasing the Rabbit. And in that book, he talked about two important things. One is the structure of the organization, of these high-performing organizations, and the other is the dynamics. Related to your point is the structure. They find these high-performing organizations do not work in silos. Everything is integrated. And we're not talking about software integration, we're talking about the whole organization is integrated towards one goal. The development team doesn't say, I'm just responsible for development. The engineering team doesn't say, I'm just an engineer.
It's not, that's your job and this is mine.
Exactly. You don't hear those phrases there. The other point, just to complete the story, are the dynamics of the organization. Where in these high-performing organizations, they don't want to cover up the mistakes. They want to work in a way to fail early and fail fast, to find the problem, fix it once and for all, and keep moving. That's the culture.
Rather than wait for 6 months and then find at the end of 6 months.
And you know what? When you do that, there's a nice term called technical debt. It's a debt. You're going to have to pay it. The more you wait, the more there's interest on it.
Right. Okay.
It's as simple as that.
Makes sense. Now, tell me, do customers always know what they want? Do software engineers always know how to deliver on what the customer wants? I mean, this comes from the presentation that you made the other day, and I thought it made great sense. So
I love your smile asking the question, first of all. It has been the experience of the industry. I'm not going to talk about my personal experience, so I'm not biased. But when you work with a customer, they usually know overall what they want, but they never know exactly what they want until they actually see something, play around with it, then they say, if you do this and this and this, that would be perfect. In my professional career, I have never delivered something to the customer and he said, that's exactly what I want. You read my mind. That never happened. Therefore, the customer doesn't know exactly what they want. However, when you look at the traditional process, it assumes that the customer knows. Therefore, if a problem or a change comes in the requirements, we look at the analyst and say, you need to do a better job next time. Right. Why didn't you find out more? He didn't know. Right. Not the analyst, the customer. Therefore, cornering the customer at the beginning and telling them, please tell me everything that you want right now.
Spec sheet needs to be 100 pages, right?
200, and then you have to sign off on your life. Because any change you're going to do after that will cost you money.
So a negotiation for a software contract takes a year or more.
Exactly. Why? Because of this requirements document. Because the customer is so afraid to sign off on his life. Because, am I sure this is everything I want? What if I change? And they always change. Always. So, again, this is all waste in the process.
So, Agile avoids that?
Definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. It pushes things, what we call, to the last responsible moment, or what could be well known as just in time. The customer doesn't know today. Why corner him today? Corner him what we call just in time. At the last responsible moment, before you implement feature X, let's find out the details of feature X. So in 30 seconds, here's what happens. We sit down with the customer, maybe 1/100th of a time that we would sit in a normal requirements gathering. We find out the high-level features they want. And usually they know that. That's why they called us. Then we pick the first one. We ask the customer, what's the highest priority? He'll say this. Usually they have a need. So we don't elicit the requirements for everything else. We just take that one and say, okay, What do you want about this? He said, I want this, 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 and this. All right, let's get started. We'll develop this. When we show this to you, most probably you'll have a better understanding of what you want later. Therefore, I didn't waste my time gathering all the requirements for the next 100 features when I know they will change.
But then how do you quote for something?
Beautiful. That's agile contracting. All right, and if you have 2 hours, we can go through that. But yeah, that's agile contracting is very interesting. It's a new field, and there are many different ways right now to. Actually, it's much better than normal contracting. You size the project in a different way, all right, and you put certain. You design the contract in a way that gives the customer maximum flexibility, yet protects you. All right. Very quickly, just the analogy. If I have, let's say, 10 features, and I somehow quantify these 10 features as 1,000 points, whatever points are, then I'm telling the customer, and we write these in our contracts. I tell the customer, listen, you have 1,000 points. Do whatever you want with these 1,000 points. All right? You can take 500 out, you can add 500 more. If you exceed 1,000 points, I'll charge you. But if you want to change whatever in these 1,000 points, change it, as long as we haven't developed it already. It's as simple as that.
It makes sense.
Very simple.
Now tell me, there is the waterfall method that we spoke about.
I love it.
Is great, okay. But you were telling us something about the waterfall method.
I was.
Yeah.
It's very wet. So Dr. Winston Royce in 1970 wrote a paper, and this paper explained what the waterfall is. Okay? This paper is on Google, by the way. Please, everyone listening, please search this. Dr. Winston Royce, 1970. On the second page of the paper, he drew the diagram, the famous diagram of the waterfall. Right under that, he has written figure 2. Right under figure 2, right under it, he says, I believe in the implementation, I believe in the concept above, but the implementation described above is risky and invites failure. Oh my God.
Does anybody read that?
That's the problem. It was a hidden message. People looked at the waterfall, said it made sense, and actually the government had adopted it. And that's what pushed the widespread of it. But Dr. Royce himself goes on in the rest of the 12 papers to describe a much more collaborative process.
So do people know about this now, or?
I hope so. I really hope so.
Okay. Now tell us, what is this Agile Manifesto?
Okay. In 2001, a group of practitioners came together. These people had created what they called lightweight software methodologies. Each one of them were working on certain projects, and they did something that worked. And they called it lightweight methodologies, whether it was Scrum, Extreme Programming, Lean, Crystal, and so forth. So in 2001, a gentleman by the name of Alistair Coburn brought them together in Salt Lake City, Utah, and they went skiing. And after skiing, they said, let's get together and see, what are we doing in common? Is there anything we're doing in common? And when these people came into a room, they wrote down 4 lines. And these 4 lines, they find, this is what we are doing in common. And that was the Agile Manifesto.
And what was that?
So the first line says, we value individuals and interactions over processes and tools.
Oh, I love it.
Individuals, people, are the main assets of any organization. And don't put them in silos, have them interact. Over processes and tools. Processes and tools are good, but they don't add as much value as people and interactions. In manufacturing, it could be the opposite. Right. A process adds value, and I can take a person and replace them with a robot. But in software, it's different.
No, we're creative people.
Exactly. The second line said, working software over comprehensive documentation. Working software adds more value to the client than comprehensive documentation. If you're the client and you're paying me $1,000 and I give you a document, okay, thank you, but you haven't solved my problem. But if I give you even a small piece of a working software, that may solve your problem and give you a return on investment. The third line was customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Think about that. You put a contract as harsh, as controlled as you can. At the end of the day, it's customer collaboration that will add more value. And my favorite is the last one. Responding to change over following a plan. Understanding that change will happen, and that if you don't respond to it and you try to be rigid, non-agile, and follow the plan was set when you didn't know. Right. Now you know.
It's bound to fail.
Exactly. And then they said the last thing, that is, while the items on the right add value, we value the items on the left more.
So both are important, but one set is more important.
Exactly. That's the Agile Manifesto. And by the way, this is very deep. And each one of these really generates or pushes a number of different practices behind it. I don't like calling people resources because they're people.
Everybody else calls them resources. At least many people call them resources.
And we have 2 resources here, 3 resources. It dehumanizes.
Correct.
People.
Correct.
And they are not resources. Resources maybe are people on a manufacturing line. Right? That I am just as valuable as the screw I put in a machine, but that's it.
In fact, somebody said yesterday on Twitter when I said, one should learn to actually guide and live by some sort of expectation management. And he said on Twitter, this is a young man, software engineer, who said, perhaps if we could have relationships run like a business where we have a contract and we have everything spelt out, then we wouldn't be hurt as easily. I mean, that's totally dehumanizing.
It's become, by the way, this is part of a bigger problem. When you look at, and this may go outside of software, but we are dehumanizing people in general. Now we communicate through chat, all right? When we want to put emotions, we put a smiley face, all right? Even in houses today, you find a brother and a sister chatting together. The living room, I'm talking maybe where I live in the US, the living room has almost vanished. So people are socializing over the internet right now. People are usernames and passwords. This is a bigger problem. And it's affecting the way people get married. It's affecting the young generation coming out. They're stuck to electronic devices. But going back to the question, we created this environment. We as the software industry. We told people, no, I'm not going to give you a contract by deliverables. I'm going to give you 2.5 people. Well, half person, I have no idea what that means till today, all right? 2.5 people, all right? And I'll give you 2.5 resources, 2.5 resources. You want 3.25? I can give that to you, but you have to pay more, all right? So we have taught the industry to interact with us like this, and now we're paying the price. How to change? Takes a lot of work. No change is simple. And that's why I said Agile is a mindset. It's understanding that in order to be responsive to change, you have to understand, number one, that your most valuable asset are humans. This is what makes or breaks an organization. You work them to death, what do you think they're going to do? One of the practices we have at TenPearls is called an emotional chart. All right, maybe I told you about this. An emotional chart, people walking in just say, how do they feel today? Do you think many software companies do this? I don't care how you feel, write code. All right, but your emotional state actually affects your productivity, the quality of software. The fact that even if my whole team is down for whatever reason, I tell them to work, what do you think the output's going to be? Buggy code that will cost us later afterwards. It's that realization that people are people. That's it. And one more last thing, I'm sorry. No, please. Where did this come from? And I think this is very important for the question that was asked. It came from the manufacturing industry. When you look at the history of software development, even the terms that we use, software engineering, all right? We looked at, in a time where we had chronic problems of delivering late, over budget, and so forth, we looked around and said, who's working? The manufacturing industry was booming at that time. And we said, okay, let's take some of the practices they're doing. All right, the construction industry was amazing. So we adopted blindly some of these practices, some of the mindsets. In addition to that, our project managers, where did they come from? Those industries. As an IT industry, we didn't have project managers. So when the project managers come from different industries, they bring their practices with them. And when you apply practices for a defined process in an empirical process, it doesn't work. It simply doesn't work.
But tell me, okay, you said if agile principles or practices are implemented correctly,
Yes.
then projects are going to cost 30-35% less, customer satisfaction is going to be high. But aren't there likely to be things that happen that you have not foreseen that could affect these figures?
110%. So agile, by definition, is changing. When we coach a team, we tell them, if we come back in 6 months and find you doing the exact same practices we told you, you're not agile. That means you haven't changed. You haven't evolved with the situation around you. You became non-agile adopting agile. All right? The whole idea, and this is the difference between agile, and this is why I don't call it a process. Because the essence of it is to equip people with the common sense to change practices as the situation changes.
Okay.
Right?
But the same thing is true. I mean, there are a lot of people who go in for these certifications, CMMI,
Yes.
ISO, but after they're finished, they're certified, they go back to doing the things the way they did.
That's why we don't certify organizations. Congratulations, you're Agile level 2 now. All right, we don't do that. Why? What is Agile level 2? The agility by definition, there's no end.
So it's people that you certify.
There are organizations certifying people. In what? They have the common understanding of the Agile values and principles. They know some of the practices and they can devise their own that are in line with the values and principles when a situation comes up. That's the key.
Doesn't it all sound a bit vague? I mean, software engineers, computer scientists, always look at things, they need to be computed. They need to work just this way. But what you're describing is a change of mindsets, you're talking about values. Is this something that computer scientists can actually implement?
I'll tell you this. It is definitely a new language in the computer science industry.
Okay.
To talk about values and principles and humans and emotions and
how
many lines of code have you written? That's my measure.
No, I mean, those are two extremes.
Okay.
There must be a middle road somewhere.
Let me put it this way. Going back to the first value, understanding individuals and interactions will bring all these. Because individuals operate on a set of values and principles. All right? Now, the key is if you try to control them and give them a certain process, humans are of multiple disciplines, let me put it that way, or natures. Some people, once you give them the rule, they think of the first way to break the rule.
That's true.
All right? Some people are like that. They find joy in breaking the rule. If you leave them to self-organize and you give them, and here's the ecosystem, an understanding that you are one team responsible for delivery, all right? And that you are all held accountable and responsible to each other and to, so delivery doesn't become the job of the project manager anymore.
Sure.
It's everyone's job. Quality is everyone's responsibility. All right? So yes, it is a mindset shift.
So does it mean we don't now need separate people who are quality engineers, quality assurance people?
We do, but quality is built in with everyone. So a developer doesn't finish code and say the tester will find out. I'm done. Why? I developed it. No, that attitude goes away. Because again, it's the silo effect. No, we are all towards one goal, which is delivery of high quality software. Does it need a change? Yes. And that's why I even told you this. Agile, don't try it at home, alone. All right? Because it's not just...
That should be the slogan.
Yeah, don't try it at home alone. All right? Why? Because it's more than opening a book and finding out. You put people in a team room together. Take 5 developers and testers, put them in a team room together. They'll look at you and say, what are we doing here? I've met people that have been doing Scrum and quote unquote as claiming to do Agile for years. And they attended just the mindset shift seminar. They came out and they said, now I understand why we're doing all this.
And why it's not working.
And why it's not working, because, and he looked at me and said, I can't believe it. I've been working with daily stand-up meetings and this for 2 years, and I just thought this is a new process. Here's a good summary. It's how to handle uncertainty mechanically. Uncertainty is in our processes. It's in our industry. How to handle it mechanically. So there are certain practices. So you're going back to the hands-on.
Not best practices.
No, there are certain practices, all right? And you're free to create your own practices. That's the key. So there's values and principles. That's the washy-washy, stuffy, and soft stuff. Put that aside. These have to be manifested through practices. And these are very disciplined practices. Go ahead.
So this means that you're creating practices as you go along, and they change.
Yes, there's a certain set of known practices. They may apply, they may not. That's fine. All right, try them first. I'll tell organizations, try Scrum, try MXP, but it doesn't mean that's the end. You have to inspect and adapt. You have to have this concept of continuous improvement. All right? And by the way, these are very disciplined. I will challenge any organization that is correctly applying Agile to come to me and say this is not a disciplined process. It actually takes more discipline if you have 2-week iterations every 2 weeks to come out with workable software. Production quality.
Rather than completing 80% of the project and it's only a document.
Exactly, a set of documents.
Right.
I challenge a team to tell me that meeting 15 minutes standing up every day is not discipline. I challenge a team to tell me that sitting in a common team room and having a working agreement amongst your peers, that what we talk about in the team room is related to the project. That's discipline.
So then, if that's the case, then these software labs that we are creating where we have people sitting in cubicles, how does that work?
I personally don't like cubicles, personally. Yeah. Dilbert, I love Dilbert. He makes fun of Agile sometimes, but he doesn't know better. But cubicles, and in the presentation you attended, I gave you a picture. I showed you a team room. And I showed you when one person in the team just was sighing, "Ugh." The rest of the team caught on and said, what's the problem? I want you to imagine the time that was saved. Him going on Google and trying to find out the solution of his problem. Probably finding it out wrong, all right, trying it, generating a bug, just shipping it to the tester because he's done, versus when he sighed because he has a problem, his team leader said, what's up? What's the problem? His peer said, oh, I had solved this problem yesterday. The tester heard them and said, if that's the solution, that will generate a bug. They took a look at it, they found the bug, they solved it, they redesigned the solution, they did it. All in 15 minutes.
So it saved a lot of hassle, a lot of frustration.
How do they feel as a team now?
Very good.
That's it. I want people to go to work, developers, testers, to go to work happy. Not to go to work, I worked in cubicles. I know this. Chatting and not and this and that, even if you firewall it all, they have ways. All right? But I've seen this environment, I've worked in this environment, and I've worked in other environments where, no, we are a team. And it's like marriage. When a team is in place, there are problems. These people used to live on separate islands. Now you're putting them in one house together.
Yeah, but they learn then.
They learn. But this is good. It vents out all the problems and they become a very, very strong team.
Okay, now before you go, tell me, how much of the world has adopted Agile technologies?
Maybe in the Western world, I will say, I don't know of a single large organization that hasn't piloted it, tried it, adopted it to a certain degree. all right? Whether it's Google, Microsoft, Yahoo had a huge implementation, banks, insurance companies, you name it, all right? These have had large implementations, trials. AOL, I was working with AOL, they had Agile. So you'll find most of these large organizations have tried it, piloted, adopted it, wherever they are in that spectrum.
And in the developing world?
In the developing world, I'll tell you this. TenPearls has a development office in Egypt. And in Egypt, it's starting. The buzz is there, all right? People are trying it out, again, on their own, which is, I'm okay with that, because the key is just don't think that you're there. Right. Don't do it wrong and say, no, this is the right way. If people here, and I guess people here maybe not, they don't know American football.
Well, some of them do.
Some of them. So those who don't, if I sit them in a room and say, here's how American football is played, go play. I know the rules. I can stand on the field, but I don't know what to do. I need a coach. It's the same thing with Agile. You said it, it's a mindset shift. It's not just a new language I'm going to try out. It's a mindset shift. So in these developing countries, I think one of the things we need to realize is, yes, many people, and I saw this when we did the presentation here, people have tried Agile. But again, they were on the team. That doesn't mean you can be a coach. It needs certain experiences in order to find out, okay, you're not doing this and this and this because 1, 2, 3, 4. That's experience. And again, if that's not there, it hurts. And that's why a lot of developing countries have had a bad taste of Agile. Because number one, access to coaches. A lot of them are in Europe and the US, and it's quite expensive. So we hope to develop, so at our organization here, we're developing a lot of internal coaches to later help the Pakistani community. Why? At the end of the day, I want you to imagine Pakistan as one company.
Well, if the industry grows, everybody grows.
And no, not just that, but the people within it. You help one person, even if they leave you, they'll go and help another person. As one company, as Pakistan looking at it as one company, we're going to benefit each other. If we have projects internally and we're not efficient and we're introducing waste, the whole company is losing money. So when we start looking at it not as competitors, but as we want to change the image of the software industry in our country, that's when we will start putting our hands together and moving forward.
Thank you, Dr. Sidki.
Thank you so much.
That was an amazing discussion with Dr. Ahmed Sidki, who is also the co-author of a book, and the book is called Becoming Agile in an Imperfect World.
Yes.
And he is the Executive Vice President, Global Delivery and Agile Solutions at TenPearls, which has an office here in Karachi. So until next time, this is Jahara signing off from another episode of In the Line of Wire.